In the first series, I began unravelling the story of this spectacular and historic nation by travelling from Athens, around the Peloponnese and up to the Ionian Islands. It took in parts of the country that lots of tourists know well, but in amongst the popular places were hidden gems undiscovered by the holidaying masses. This series, I'm back on board my beautiful boat Miazoi and heading to a region of Greece I haven't spent much time in. The plan is to skip between the islands, taking in the sights of the northern Aegean. It'll be a journey of discovery where I'll be digging deeper into the fabric that makes Greece so unique and immersing myself in a centuries-old culture unlike anywhere else on earth. This episode sees me finishing up my time on Thasos before heading to the holiest place in Greece, Mount Άθως. From there, I'll be making my way to Σαμοθράκη, the Aegean's adventure capital. Another beautiful day in paradise. The sun is shining, the water warm, and I've planned a busy schedule to make the most of it. You can go to a beach that's crowded, you can go to a beach that's secluded. Thasos has everything to offer, but you've got to go out and find it. Get off the beaten track. We left my travels on the south of the island, where I explored the region around the town of Εκεί. Having seen the sights in this area, we enjoyed one final breakfast overlooking the peaceful harbour before it was time to up anchor and move westward. Our next major port was Limonadea, but before reaching there, I had to show you a special beach that's a favourite with tourists and locals alike. It's accessible by road, so anyone can pay to visit, but plan to spend a whole day there because there's more to do than just relax in the sun. You know, I love the Thasian beaches. There's so many of them, but they all have their own identity. The beach behind me has this beautiful structure up there. It looks like a fortress, but it's not. This beach is called Metalia Beach, and you can work that out, Metal Beach. So this is where they mined iron ore and zinc, and I want to go up there and have a look. I've been for a swim this morning, so let's just go straight up. Most of these fun-loving beachgoers are oblivious to the rich history that surrounds them. The island has a past of wealth and mineral exploitation, and I'm told clandestine intrigue before and during last century's world wars. Some of that story is told by this unique site I'm about to show you. Although I've never been to Thasos before, this place brings back memories of when I was a 10-year-old with my cousins on the beaches of Greece. They've all got something like this to offer, and the nooks and crannies, you go around and explore them. It's great. If you come here to the beach, kids got somewhere to play. The beach is surrounded by a mass of buildings and this huge infrastructure. I've got no idea what this building is, but it looks awesome. These buildings and the remnant processing equipment are protected for their heritage significance. The massive pipes and stacks form part of an intricate plant that extracted calamine from iron ore. Calamine, you ask? Well, I'm told the minerals in calamine are the origin of a very special metal we use in coins, roofs, batteries, and amongst other things, dietary supplements. Since the earlier settlements, different people have exploited the mineral wealth of Thasos. Beneath the rugged beauty of the place lay great wealth, and everyone wanted a piece of the pie. In 1905, the Germans came here and built this massive infrastructure to exploit the minerals. Come 1914, World War I started, and the Germans left. But apparently the locals tell me some of them hung around and used this place as a base to spy from. Now, I don't know how much truth there is in that, but it sounds pretty good. These shells of the past act as reminders of a time when the island was thriving with industry beyond just the marble quarries. They're engineering marvels built with stone and steel, creating a dramatic backdrop to a stunning beach. One of the locals that has called Thasos home for almost his whole life and has seen many of the changes that have occurred here is Kathayouna Christo. His stories of living here in his little piece of paradise left a lasting impression on me.
Τίποτα δεν έχει αλλάξει. Ναι. Τίποτα. Δηλαδή είναι φυσιολογικό έτσι πώς το βλέπεις.
Αλλά ο τουρισμός όμως έχει αλλάξει.
Ο τουρισμός έχει αλλάξει γιατί παλιά ας πούμε έρχονταν Γερμανοί, Γάλλοι, ναι, Ιταλοί, ναι, και Νορβηγοί. Ναι. Τώρα έρχονται και από Βαλκάνια. Σέρβοι, Ρουμάνοι, Βούλγαροι, Πολωνοί, Τσέχοι, Σλοβάκοι.
Μπράβο.
Πάρα πολύ, πάρα πολύ.
Γιατί είμαστε κοντά, έτσι.
Ναι, είναι γύρω-γύρω, ναι. Τώρα ξέρω από Βουλγαρία κάνεις 2 ώρες.
2 ώρες από Βουλγαρία. Εσύ έχεις τη ζωή, το ξέρεις.
Έχω.
Ναι. Χάρηκα που σε γνώρισα, έτσι.
Εγώ χάρηκα που σας γνώρισα, παιδιά.
Ευχαριστώ.
Χάρηκα πάρα πολύ που σας γνώρισα.
You would think that the Greek islands are a laid-back place where time is insignificant, and for the most part, you would be absolutely correct. But there's one place in this region where appointments must be kept, where there are strict rules that have lasted for over 1,100 years. To visit this place, we needed a permit, which was organised many months before. There are also stringent clothing regulations, meaning no shorts or short sleeves, so the usual beach garb was packed away. If you want to step foot on this hallowed ground, there's a number of other restrictions you must adhere to also, all of which exist to maintain the sanctity of the place. The location I'm referring to is Mount Άθως, where 20 monasteries sit on a 300 square kilometre peninsula. It's about as holy a slice of earth as you can find anywhere, and a location I've long wanted to visit, not particularly from a religious point of view, but to see what all the hubbub and mystery is about. Very excited. Right now we're about 2 hours drive from Thessaloniki. Mount Άθως is right behind us, 50 kilometres of peninsula, 7 kilometres wide. This boat's going to take us there because you can't go by road. Special spot. Now I better get going. My priest's waiting for me, I better go. We're just having a few issues trying to get on because cameras are not allowed on Mount Άθως. So we're all sorts of issues.
Εάν γίνεται δεκτή η κάμερα.
Ζητάω
κάποιο χαρτί για να με δώσουν μια βεβαίωση και δεν υπάρχει.
They know that we're taking the camera on. We can't hide that, you know. Yeah, but we've got a letter from. You've got that letter, haven't you? Despite all the paperwork and agreements in place, we still had to negotiate our way aboard. Countless phone calls to various powers, cajoling by Captain Yanni, requests from our office in Athens to the head abbot, and we were finally given permission to board the ferry. Mind you, it does help when you tell them that you've flown your parish priest all the way from Australia to escort you. Father Gerasimos, or Father G, as some of us know him, is my parish priest. His brother is a monk at Mount Άθως, so who better to take me on this segment of my odyssey?
So you haven't seen your brother for 5 years. We're going to see him today. What are the emotions like?
Separation feels like someone's passed away. But the great joy is that you get to see them every now and then.
5 years? That's not every now and then, Father.
That's right.
Eh?
Yeah.
So what is the emotion? It's right now, how do you feel it?
Oh, it's measured anticipation. Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, major anticipation for me because I've read a lot about Mount Άθως, but I'm not too sure what to expect. A lot of men, obviously.
Well, it's all men, and Mount Άθως is a place of full spiritual commitment and dedication to the spiritual life.
Major sacrifice.
Sacrifice all the worldly things, the property, the money, and they maintain their virginity as well.
Yeah.
Coming into the monastery of Vatopedi sent shivers down my spine. To say I was blown away is an understatement. My first thought was that I wished Helen was there to share that feeling with me, but that could never happen. We do everything together, and I know she, like my mother, would have loved this spiritual journey.
Well, the monastery in its present form was built in the late 10th century, and it was one of the first monasteries built on the holy mountain of the present era. There was a monastery that existed here before that time, which according to the tradition had been built by the Emperor Theodosius the Great in the late 4th century on the place of a church built by Constantine the Great a few years before that. Vatopedi is the largest monastery in Greece today as far as the volume of its buildings go. It has about 10,000 square meters of living space.
And number of monks?
Number of monks, right now we're about 125.
How does that rank in the on the mountain?
It's the largest brotherhood in Greece.
Wow.
And we're still growing. When I came here in 1993, we were about 40. So the monastery has tripled.
This was more than just a step back in time. It was a leap through the ages. The architecture was medieval and spectacular. The stillness, absolute quiet and simplicity were unlike anything I'd experienced before. I felt humbled. It's definitely the perfect setting for meditation, collecting of thoughts, and of course, prayer.
You know, the common denominator I see in the Mount Άθως monastery is these big, thick defensive walls. In the first 2 centuries of settlement here in Mount Άθως, there were 180 monasteries and 20,000 monks. And the only ones that survived through the Crusades and pirate attacks were these large monasteries with these big defensive walls. The monks actually used to defend themselves from all these pirate attacks. For the next 800 years, the monks learnt to negotiate an armistice with their conquerors. And that's why they survived these 1100 years.
These monasteries have had to endure many difficult times over the last 11 centuries. They've survived all types of crisis, from economic and political to the forces of nature and several wars. Today, vast numbers of pilgrims visit the monasteries in search of healing, solace and meditation. Others simply want to get away from the rat race and collect their thoughts. But most come here to be surrounded by the beautifully adorned buildings and reboot their spiritual journey in life. Making this your home is a major commitment. Only eating twice a day, praying for 5 hours in the morning, and having no women on the island would test even the most devout. I definitely wouldn't last long here.
The work that has been done here over the last 3 decades has been remarkable.
And how many monks are in here now?
It's about 123, and together with those monks, there'd be anywhere between 50 and 500 visitors daily.
And how many monks were there back in the 80s and 90s? There weren't many, were there?
In the 80s, there were about 10 monks left after a period of decline during the 20th century.
And now there's over 100, so it's really shot up, hasn't it?
Since the 90s, with the coming of a new brotherhood, which had new life, and I think the average age, even now, is about 35.
That's impressive. It's something you wouldn't expect here, is it? A lot of people think monks, you know, monasteries, everybody's old, but there's a lot of young people here.
There are, and they're actually quite educated, university trained.
I mean, your brother, how old's your brother?
My brother is in his mid-30s, and he was university trained himself in Australia, and he came here almost a decade ago.
So they're all young people. It's something you wouldn't expect. It's an amazing thing. I'm dying to find out why there's so many young guys coming here to give their life, to sacrifice everything for the rest of their lives here in the monastery. I'm dying to find, mind you, I'm dying to go into that place and have something to eat. Should we go?
Let's do that first.
Let's go.
The monks live by a code that centres around the celebration of God and a life of contemplation and sacrifice. Their daily life is a product of this code, and an example of its simplicity is their meals. The food is very raw, generally some fruit, vegetables, lentils and fish once a week.
I don't think I've ever been in a dining hall this old. It's 1,000 years old. Just these marble tops, they're 1,500 years old. They were given to Vatopedi from a monastery in Constantinople from the 4th century. The abbot sits down there with the priests. All the monks sit in this space here. The pilgrims sit back there. Moments from now, everybody will be in here, it'll be full. I better grab a seat right now, because I'm starved. Ready to go. Ooh, kiwi fruit in Mount Άθως.
It felt a little awkward being served by a man of the cloth, but that's the way it is here. Monks grow and collect the vegetables from the field. They cook everything and then serve you. If you studied as an accountant, lawyer or doctor and want to take up life as a monk, then that's what you'll most probably be tasked with at the monastery. This place is a living, breathing city. It's almost totally self-sustained. They rely very little on the outside world. The majority of the food is grown here. They make their own clothes, provide basic medical treatment, maintain their equipment, and have minimal influence from beyond the monastery walls. You could easily see it as limiting, but for those that live here, this minimalist life is liberating. And if there's one thing I learned from this experience, when you eat only twice a day, the food tastes that much better.
Life for a monk and the pilgrims in Άθως is an early morning and a long day. The bells just went off at 3 o'clock. And we even get snooze buttons. There's a guy, a monk, hitting sticks every 10 minutes to make sure you wake up for prayer. Now, we're not going to go to prayer. We're actually going to go to the kitchen and see him cooking fish this morning. So, I don't know why I'm being quiet, because everybody's up.
If the monk with the sticks doesn't wake you, the scent of frying fish certainly will. My nose led me to the kitchen. God only knows how they're praying through this at the moment. I, for one, was starving and the food smelled amazing.
There's about 8 or 9 monks working in here, and it's a well-organised kitchen. I mean, I worked in the kitchen before, and you can see that there's process happening. It's well-organised. They know exactly what's going to happen next. They're feeding 130 monks and probably about 50 pilgrims this morning for breakfast. And it's 5 o'clock in the morning, so we're not far away from breakfast. They're all in prayer at the moment. These guys miss prayer. They'll do it later.
They not only fry and grill food for 200 people, the monks also catch and clean the fish from their own aquaculture farms. After having conducted the same process for centuries, it's no wonder they've become incredibly efficient at it. This has to be the longest running vertically integrated business in the world. 1100 years and they haven't gone broke. Maybe they should consider listing on Wall Street.
It's a real buzz. They're trying to ramp it up because they want to make the last hour of prayer, the 1 hour of liturgy at 8 o'clock. It's 20 past 5. I tell you what, the aroma is awesome. I'm starved. I don't know if I can wait for 3 hours.
As day breaks, at a time when most other people are still sound asleep, Mount Άθως has already been awake for hours. The dramatic backdrop leaves you breathless. However, this is just another day in the life at the monastery. The kitchen is running at full steam preparing breakfast, while the rest of the monks are in prayer. They do this every morning. It's their job, praying from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. Only then will they eat. The pilgrims are invited to prayer. Here they will stand with the monks for hours. It's part of their sacrifice and of giving up your normal routine for what you believe in. This is where you see the monks' true devotion. This is a life that's tough for the average person to understand. We have our possessions, our jobs, and most importantly, our families. These things are hard to give up, and for the majority of us, it's impossible. But the monks have willingly left that life in the outside world behind them for something they believe is greater, the love of God. And this thought is what gives them purpose and fulfills them. It was expressed beautifully by all the monks I spoke with. However, none had a story more enthralling than the 3 Australian brothers I met, who had found their home here all the way from the Gold Coast.
You are the one I'm most excited to meet. I have been thinking about your story for a year, and I'm sorry to make you all nervous, but it's a great story. When did you first come to Mount Άθως?
First came in 2006. After being here for a period of time, my brothers came to visit.
Yep. Together?
Together, 2 brothers came.
Yep.
One had an experience here. It was, he stayed, the other went back. And my other brother came with my other brother, and he stayed, and the other one went back. So one sort of handed off the other. You know?
Right. And so all 3 of you are now here?
Yeah.
How is life different here with your brothers, the experience that you had with your 2 brothers, compared to what it was like in Australia?
No, our life here is more of a spiritual connection we have. It's more spiritual than anything. Whereas in the world, we had a connection, but it was more so worldly. Here we're on the same path, as well as we share the same sort of goal together.
And do you still have that same connection that you had? Have you lost that, or?
I think it's more, we're closer more so here.
Wow.
Because it's a life in Christ we live here. which is the true life. The worldly life has its human weaknesses in between, but the spiritual life is higher than the worldly life.
You're sacrificing your career, you're sacrificing your family, even though we have some minimal contact with them, obviously. We're sacrificing our own family that we could have had as well, all for Christ. And in essence, we are fulfilling the first commandment, which is to love God with your whole being, your mind, your soul, your heart. This is the fulfillment of the first commandment in absolution.
I was 14 when I first got here. We stayed for 2 days, forgot about that experience, and then came back here when I was 22.
And you've never left since?
And from then I'm still here.
So how many years have you been here?
7 years now.
7 years. And what did you do when you were in Australia before you came here?
I studied music and philosophy, and I was concerned about thinking about certain things, but I was pretty stuck onto my music.
Yep.
I started going out. I thought, oh, my friends are working in a bar, I'll start working in a bar as well. I was a barman for a couple of years, for a few years. And then, studied music, I'll start playing music. Started playing the music I enjoyed. And I was pretty much just living around that whole, getting as much joy, fun, happiness out of life as I could. But in doing that, I started to realise that there was something inside that was still empty. And I thought that it was probably just going to be filled by getting married, having a family, having that sort of a thing. I mean, I'd tried girlfriends, I'd seen sort of what it might be like getting married, and I realised that there's still something that's even deeper than a person's emotions. There's something that exists that's even more inside, that whatever happens, if a person doesn't have some spiritual connection, if a person doesn't touch onto God, then he could become 80 years old and not ever really have lived a second of his life.
Are there any regrets? I mean, are you happy to be here? Are there any teensy little regrets of not being?
For me, it wasn't. It was a matter of finding the will of God. And once I found it, that was it.
It seems absolute. It's the same answer I get from all of you. It's like you're singing from the same hymn sheet.
This is not something we've done, something God does for each one.
Even though I was incredibly happy in the world, I'd lived anything that anyone could dream to live. Like, there wasn't, all my friends had the thought, had the question, you were the happiest guy we knew, why would you chuck that stuff away? And it seemed strange at the time when I did it, but for me it was the most natural thing to do.
All that can happen without somebody having the monastic calling. There's something special which comes from above and calls someone to the monastic life. And not everyone gets that. So we have to respond to that calling. And we respond to that with our whole heart. And that's why we sacrifice all those things that we said before.
Talking about your brother, were you happy to see him after not seeing him for 5 years?
Of course I was happy to see him.
Yeah. But he doesn't drink coffee. You don't drink coffee either as well, do you?
Rarely.
Rarely?
I'm still young and strong, so I can last in the services when it's dark. So you need to force yourself a bit.
I think, listen, we've got very little time together as brothers and sisters, so why don't we go and have a coffee with him? We'll convince him to have a coffee, eh?
Okay. I might have a tea.
Okay, no, let's go. At the monastery of Vatopedi, the sound of a mallet tapping rhythmically on a board is the centuries-old way of gathering monks for prayer, food, or to wake of a morning. With over 10,000 square metres of floor space, you can understand why it takes the monk a while to get around each time. No doubt he's a fit guy too, racking up plenty of steps on his daily routine. At the moment, he's waking up everyone from their afternoon naps and getting them to Mass, which will last another few hours before dinner. Again, this happens every day. Some monks still look as though they could do with a little more sleep, but the work has to continue, regardless of how one feels. Tradition is important here. It dates back a millennia, so change is not overly welcome. The old guard maintains control of how everything operates and educates and mentors the new arrivals with this new way of thinking and into embracing the strict way of life. So in order for there to be any variation in the processes, it would take somewhat of a revolution. Although from what I see with the younger generation, they're chipping away at it, albeit very slowly. One thing they've modernised a little is their farming practices. In order to feed all the new arrivals and service their ever-growing export demands, the monks have embraced certain contemporary agricultural luxuries. You know, modern society over the last 10 or 20 years have become sustainably conscious. But
Here at Vatopedi at Mount Άθως, they've been doing it for over 1,000 years. And not only do they do it well, but they sell their product to the outside. And they do it on the best real estate, in the best climate on this earth. Have a look at this. Working the land for centuries, these monks have learned a thing or two about agriculture and to a greater extent, business. They export a number of products ranging from skincare, shampoo, herbal creams and therapeutic soap to books and iconography. It's a well-oiled machine that has lasted the test of time. As the world has developed massive technology-filled cities, this monastic state has battled through the ages with little or no change to their community's way of living. It's a long movie on pause and no one wants to press the play button. It's certainly got both its ardent followers and others that want to pull this male-only institution into the 21st century. To be honest, I can understand both views. In the end, even though I couldn't share this experience with Helen, I must say, the small sacrifices I had to make and spending a few days away from my family were well worth it. Well, everything comes to an end and my stay at Mount Άθως at Vatopedi finishes now. I've got to tell you, it was an experience that I'll never forget. I was a bit underwhelmed coming here because I had to put the long sleeves and the long pants on and it was like I was being prepared. But I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. My whole view of what a monk does and his life has changed. They're just like you and I. My whole view of Mount Άθως has changed. It's been a spiritual enlightenment. I loved it. The architecture, the food, the people, the sustainability, it's been absolutely awesome. It's something I'll take with me to the grave. Travelling to our next destination gave me a chance to reflect on the unforgettable experience that was Mount Άθως. I felt grounded and tranquil, but also enlightened and wiser for it. Anyway, the island of Samothrace awaited, and while I was oblivious and in some other dimension, my crew were busy doing what they do best, running my beautiful boat, Miazoi. The team on the boat are like my third arm and have become family. I love them dearly. They're passionate and hardworking and make life on the boat a lot of fun.
Everyone on the boat must know how to drive the boat safely somewhere in case that something happened to me. Of course, at the moment, Kyriakos thinks that he drives the boat, but it is on the autopilot.
Hello, girls. How we going? How we going? What's happening?
No.
What's happening?
The action.
So tell me, is it the glamour job they all talk about? You guys look fantastic, mind you. It's like you put makeup on for this, but they haven't. They don't know that we're coming down. Is it the glamour job that they talk about?
Of course, look what we're doing.
Yeah?
Looks pretty glamorous to me.
How can you guys stay so bright when in the morning when I wake up at 5:30, you're there giving me a cup of coffee, and when I go to bed at night, when my guests are still up there, you guys are serving drinks. What's the story? How do you do it?
Good team. Yeah.
Good
definitely.
team?
Yeah.
Yeah? Would you recommend the job that you do for other young people like you in their early 20s?
100%. Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Work hard, play hard. Yeah. Get to save.
I know you work hard. I didn't know about the play hard. What's the story? Tell me what's the play hard.
We don't get many days off, so we haven't played hard yet. Living the dream.
An overcast and grey morning wasn't enough to take the shine off the excitement for the coming days. We were headed to Samothrace, an island big on adventure as well as relaxation. I'm always amazed that each Greek island has its own offering, even this small landmass. It's only 17 kilometres long and covered almost entirely by the massive Mount Seios, the Aegean's highest peak. Legend has it that Poseidon sat atop this mountain to watch the Trojan War. Samothrace, or Sαμοθράκη as the Greeks know it, is where they unearthed the famous winged goddess statue of Nike. She has her own chamber in the Louvre, they named a shoe brand after her, and the emblem called the Spirit of Ecstasy, which sits on the bonnet of every Rolls-Royce car, was inspired by her. You'll learn more about that later. Today, Samothrace is known for its thermal springs, running waters and adventure sports like mountaineering, hiking, diving, mountain biking and canyoning. It's a hub for tourists that like to get their heart rate up and adrenaline pumping. But like I said earlier, it's also a place famed for its soothing waters, so you can start the day with a bit of excitement and exercise and finish it off by relieving your tired body in a natural spa. Add to this the archaeological sites and you've got every base covered. I think this is going to be my kind of island.
Don't need a bottle of water around here, I'll tell you that now. This is one of 3 castles that were built by the Genoese in the 1400s. Beautiful structure, but I didn't come here for the structure, I came here for the view.
Pretty much every view worth checking out requires a bit of effort. In this case, the winding path and numerous stairs led to a fantastic reward.
You know, Hora is just such a beautiful little town. These red roofs in this amphitheatre, it's just so picturesque, and the red roofs with the rocks on them, the rocks holding down the clay tiles, because the weather is just so unpredictable here. There's a massive mountain in the middle of the sea and the weather conditions change all the time. You know, the other thing I like about it is that it reminds me of Paliochra in Kythera, and for that matter, many towns in the islands of Greece, the small islands of Greece, where they're built in the shelter of the mountains, but they can still see the sea and they can see the pirates coming in. They're only 5 k's from the sea.
From up here, you get a real appreciation of just how sparsely populated and undeveloped the island is. There's around 3,000 people living here, most of whom are in one of 3 major settlements, with the remainder scattered about in tiny mountain villages. The remote location makes it difficult for tourists to get here, and being so rugged means there's only so much growth that can happen here. These things have combined to help keep the island more genuine. Samothrace provides an authentic experience of rural Greek life in a dramatic and beautiful setting that I haven't come across elsewhere in my travels. But as more people discover this gem of a place, the influence and impact of the outside increases.
What's great is that a lot of these houses that are abandoned have been turned into shops and all sorts of stuff.
Today, the locals are embracing a growth in tourism numbers and are cautiously optimistic that it might mean fewer of the younger people need to leave to find work. Shops are opening, hotels and restaurants are being built, and there's a positive, friendly atmosphere that openly welcomes outsiders.
The one commodity that Sαμοθράκη has a lot of that many of the Greek islands don't have enough of is water. And they've got lots of it because of that big mountain up there, Saios. And they reckon the water is pretty good because it's filtered well through the rocks. I'm going to try it out. Oh, nice and clean. Nice to get it without all that fluoride in it. Above it you can see the insignia of the Kavidion, which is thousands of years old, from the sanctuary of the gods. And you can see the 2-headed bird, which was from the empire of the Byzantine times. Anyway, I'm starved. They reckon the food here is awesome.
All this walking has not only worked up a thirst, but a very healthy appetite. I was warned that the food here is incredible and the servings are big, so an empty stomach is required.
Did I mention there's a lot of water? Mate, there's so much water here. The last haven't got washed away. I'm going to the only one that's left.
Every island in Greece likes to think that they're the culinary hotspot, that their meals are the best in the Mediterranean. Well, some places are certainly much better than others. In the case of Samothrace, the food is sensational, and they're specifically known for the quality of their goat and the many ways that they prepare it. A testament to just how great the food was at this gorgeous tavern is how fast we ate it all. It took a matter of seconds from being placed on the table to going down the hatch. There wasn't even enough time for the cameraman to get a decent shot of the dishes before we decimated them. Mealtimes are always a favourite part of my travels. Sitting with friends and family, gorging ourselves on amazing food, and gazing at scenery that leaves you in awe. All the while, there's plenty of laughs and banter about what we all got up to during our days. Communal eating isn't limited to the Greeks. However, it's something that is disappearing from a lot of cultures. As the pace of life increases and free time becomes a rarity, things like sitting for a meal with your family fall by the wayside. It's something I'm doing my best not to let occur. Despite how chaotic life can get, you always have to make time to share the journey with loved ones. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's two sides to Samothrace, not just experientially, but geographically. I know, obviously, right? But it's quite apparent just how different the opposing shores are here. On the leeward side, you've got a more dry and barren landscape, but head around the northwest of the island and the mood changes. This part is where the prevailing winds crash into the coast, bringing with them the moisture that builds up on Mount Sayos, eventually falling as soaking rains. For your average tourist, it looks cold, bleak, and not terribly inviting. But for the adventurous, this is paradise. There also happens to be all sorts of ruins dotted all along the coastal road. Even though this was the rugged and less popular side of Samothrace, there were still small settlements, and it required forts and towers to keep a watchful eye for potential invaders. Mind you, they'd probably wreck on the rocky shores anyway. I might not be an adventure seeker or adrenaline junkie, but I do appreciate the occasional bit of outdoor fun beyond a simple hike. So I met up with Cleo and Dan to see a more extreme angle of Samothrace. They're experienced canyoners that regularly take groups on week-long adventures into the mountains. I was lucky enough to spend a few hours with them on a short walk to one of the watercourses that the island is known for.
So, Cleo, you're a nuclear engineer.
Yeah.
And Dan is, in astronomy. What brings you to caving and canyoning? Why do you do this?
Well, before being engineers, we was mountain lovers, let's say.
Yep.
So, should we cross here?
Yeah, let's cross here, man.
Okay. So, after graduating and beginning real engineers, we didn't forget about our hobbies,
Yep.
As you can see, I'm not quite as nimble as these two. Even on relatively smooth ground, I battled to keep up.
So, how long have you been coming to Samathrakki now?
This is the eighth.
8th year, wow.
Usually I'm coming here only once a year, but in the last 3 years I came twice a year.
Ah, that's good. We've only got so much time left, we must abuse it. Hit it hard.
The extreme height of Mount Sayos and the small size of this island have created several different microclimates, which are extreme during the winter months. The height and volume of falling water over the centuries has created these magnificent canyons and waterways that weave their way to all parts of the island's coastline. Many, like the waterfall we hiked to, are easily accessible. Climbing them though, I suggest you're guided by someone like Cleo. This is not the kind of place you want to have an accident. The slightest of wrong steps can mean disaster. And being in the middle of nowhere, it'll be a long time before anyone can come to your aid, if at all.
Cleo, I really loved coming up here. It was a beautiful walk. Even that last ascent was exciting. I get up here now, I've got to tell you, I didn't sweat coming up, but I'm sweating just from looking at this. It's just too much. You're going to go down that. You're going to rappel down that now.
Yes, of course. That's the purpose of our trip.
Are you sure everything's there?
Well, yes. Being afraid is not a shame here.
Right.
And I'm afraid when I'm making the first step on the waterfall, but after that, the feeling of being one with the nature, it's great. It's just gorgeous.
I'm getting a little bit of it. Obviously, I wanted to come with you, but I forgot my helmet and gear down there, so otherwise I would have come with you.
Yeah, that's
but unfortunately,
for sure.
I forgot the gear, So tell me, what is going to happen now? What are you going to do now? Explain to me what's going to happen now.
Well, for the beginning, we are going to the path. It's a very exposed path. We shall reach that point where the waterfall starts. We shall find, hopefully, we shall find the anchors, make the riggings, and descend in a special technique called rappelling in canyon.
Right, okay. Tell me, if I was to learn how to do this, how long before I could do that?
Well, one day.
No way! No chance in the world!
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe 1 year or...
No, not that. No, because there is a first level, let's say ground zero in canyoning, is discovering canyon. And you will be able, after 1 day of practicing, to descend on such a waterfall safely, of course, and comfortable as well, but under my supervision. Yeah.
Well, listen, can you do me one favour before you go up there? Help me get down out of here. I've got to get down now. Look at that. I think it's going to be worse getting down than going up. Look at that. Look at that.
Okay.
Look at that.
Go inside my backpack.
All right. Well, good luck, mate.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck. I hope to see you on the other side.
Okay.
I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about me. Okay?
I will come and help you there.
Thank you, mate.
Bye.
Thank you. I think he's nuts. I think all these guys are nuts. But he's a top bloke.
You know how they say the camera adds 10 pounds? Well, it also makes everything look less steep.
Why do I do this stuff? I prefer the taverns and the beaches, you know, and the archaeology and the history. It's all better. This is crazy.
Don't be fooled by the camera angle. This is almost a vertical descent, and taking 100 kilos down is not easy for a gentle giant like myself. It's not the most flattering look. Maybe I should consider a body double like Bear Grylls for the next time I do something as ludicrous as this.
That looks like Cleo coming down first. It's a double rope. Dan is at the top. It's a double rope because their shackles are up there. They leave the shackles in there and they just bring the rope back down so they can use it again for the next descent. I'm scared right now just looking at these guys. So canyoning is only one sport that they do here. There's some nice dive spots, some beautiful sea creatures to see. There's a whole lot of other sports that they do. Mountaineering, they climb to the top of that 1,700 metre Mount Sayos. All these sports, none of them I'm going to do. None. I'm not doing any of them. It's bad enough that I came up here. Here he goes. He's a nut. Have a look at this. Check it out.
It just goes to show that you're never too old for a bit of adventure. I have to admit that as much as I say I won't abseil, watching these guys, I started to think I might just give it a go, although maybe on something a bit more tame.
You know what though? I might be scared, but what they're doing looks absolutely spectacular. I can understand what Cleo means when he says he's one with the earth, or with nature. The feeling he's getting right now. Check him out right now. He's nuts, man.
This episode might have come to an end, but my exploration of Samothrace sure hasn't. In the next instalment of my Greek Odyssey, I'm delving deeper into the history and culture of this tiny island and showing you why it punches well above its weight. Apart from exploring ancient ruins and archaeological wonders, I'll also be lacing up the hiking boots and heading to the heart of the island. Plus, I'm going to visit the spas and thermal springs Samothrace is famous for. And of course, I'll be giving you a taste of a few of the island's delicacies, including the most delicious goat I've ever had. But before any of that happened, I had the terrifying hike back to the bottom of the mountain. Let's just say it took a lot longer to get down than it did to climb up, and there was no way I would let the cameras roll on that ordeal.